Okay, you guys should have the 9-3 note sheet out, and you should be looking at day 3, all right? If you don't have this, go ahead and see the sub, and they have an extra copy of the notes for you, okay? So go ahead and find 10-3 and find day 3. All right, so we're going to be working at what's called a conjugate, okay? A conjugate. And what a conjugate is, it is the sum and difference of the same two terms, okay? So an example here, what I'm talking about, if we have something like 3 minus square root 2, the conjugate to that would be 3 plus square root 2, okay? So now another example here, if I have root 3 minus 4 root 7, the conjugate to that would be root 3 plus 4 root 7. So a conjugate is kind of like a difference of squares, to be quite frank. It's difference of squares. It's the exact same thing, but one has a minus and one has a plus. Okay, so when we see conjugate, it's dealing with square roots, but in essence, it has the same idea of difference of squares. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the first example here. Okay, so when we're looking at this, we know that you cannot have a square root in the denominator. This guy is a big no-no. But the problem is that you have the 6 minus attached to it, okay? It wasn't like when we did the problems and we had like 4 over root 3. And then we would just multiply by root 3, okay? And so you'd have 4 root 3 over 9, or sorry, over 3. Okay, the difference is this is kind of like a binomial. You've got that minus and plus in the middle. And when you have that minus or plus in the middle, you're still going to multiply top and bottom, just like we did, but you've got to multiply by the whole thing, not just the square root part. Okay, so when we do this, to get this negative to get out of the way, what we're going to do is we're going to multiply by what's called the conjugate, 6 plus 2 root 2. And we're also going to do that on the top, 6 plus 2 root 2. Okay, so now at this point, we've just got a lot of multiplication we need to do. So we're going to start by, I'm going to work on the numerator first. So I'm going to take that 18, and I'm going to take it to both parts. And so I take 18 times 6 and get 108 plus, and then again, outside number, inside number, right? This is the outside, this is inside. Those cannot be mixed. So you're just going to have 18 root 2. Okay, now on the bottom, we are technically foiling this out. It is saying 6 minus root 2 times 6 plus root 2. Okay, so when we start foiling this, we're going to go ahead and take the 6 to both parts. So I'm going to get 36. 6 times 6 is 36. And then I'm going to take the 6 times root 2 and get plus 6 root 2. All right, and then I'm going to FOIL, and I'm going to take this negative 2, and we're going to take it to both parts. So I'm going to start by taking negative 2 root 2 to 6. And so I get negative 6 root 2. And then I'm going to go ahead and take the negative root 2 times the root 2. And so when I do that, it is a negative square root of 4. Okay? All right, so now I want you to really focus in down here on this bottom part. Okay? When we're doing this, like I said, it's just like difference to squares. And we know that in difference to squares, the middle will always drop off. So this guy right here should always drop off. If it doesn't cancel out, you've done something wrong. So on the bottom, when those cancel out, I'm left with 36. So I've got my 36 right here, and I'm left with the square root of 4. And we know that the square root of 4 is just 2. So in reality, I'm left with 36 minus 2 on the bottom, or 34. So I have, zoom out here a little bit, I have 108 plus 18 root 2 over 34. Okay, so now, just like we did when we were doing problems like this up here, okay, you look at the square root on the inside and you look at your outsides. Same concept. Look at your square root. Can I reduce the square root of 2? No, that can't happen. All right, and then now instead of just reducing these two, you reduce all outside numbers. Okay, so if I'm looking at all those outside numbers, well, I know a 2 is going to come out of it. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this down by 2 and get 54. I'm going to cut this down by 2 and get 9. And cut this down by 2 and get 17. And then I'm looking, is there still another number that could come out? And in this case, we know that there's probably not going to be with a 9 and a 17. So my final answer is going to be 54 plus 9 root 2 all over 17. Okay? All right, let's go to another example here. Okay, so again, you're going to multiply by the conjugate. So I'm going to multiply by 6 plus root 3 on top and bottom. Okay, and on the top, again, we're going to distribute that 2 to both parts. So I have got 12 plus 2 root 3. And then I'm going to look to the bottom now. And again, I'm going to FOIL it out. And so I'm going to take the 6 to both parts to start with. So 6 times 6 is 36. 6 times root 3 is 6 root 3. And now I'm going to go ahead and multiply the negative square root of 3 to both parts. So I've got negative 6 root 3 and then negative square root of 9. Okay, so now again, this middle should drop off. Okay, now it's going to become the question, this is what everybody's going to start asking me, is do we have to actually do this part if we know it's going to drop off? And my answer is going to be no. If you understand that the middle is going to drop off and you just want to take the 6 times the 6 and get the 36, and then you want to take the last terms, the negative root 3 times root 3, and get this guy right here, the negative square root of 9, I'm okay with that. All right? And so on the bottom, we're going to have 36 minus 3. All right. So let's write here off to the side. So my answer right now, I've got a 12 plus 2 root 3 on top. And on the bottom, we've got 36 minus 3, or 33. Okay, and then you're looking, can I do anything with the inside? 3, no, the answer is no. 12, 2, and 33, can I do anything with those outside? And in this case, the answer would be no. So I didn't have to simplify anything, so this right here is my answer. Okay, all right, let's go on to the next one. Okay, what I want you to do right now is I want you to pause the video, and I want you to try to do this one on your own, and then push play again and see if you got it right. So go ahead and pause the video now. All right, so after you've paused the video, you should have multiplied by negative 4 minus root 8. I multiply by that conjugate, negative 4 minus root 8. All right, now you should have distributed that to both parts. And so when you do that, you get negative 2 times negative 4 is negative 8 root 5. And then you take 2 root 5 times that negative 8 root 8 and get negative 2 root 40. Okay, now on the bottom, again, I told you I'm okay with you just taking the negative 4 times the negative 4 and getting a positive 16 there. And then root 8 times root 8 is 64, and we have already talked about that. If you've got two of the same thing, you can just go ahead and go straight to 8. So if you put the square root of 64 there, that's fine. Just make sure you change it over to an 8. Okay, so right now on the bottom, I've got an 8 down here. Okay, so 16 minus 8 is 8. So now I'm looking on my insides first. 5, good to go. 40 though, I need to do something with this guy. So let's go ahead and start breaking down the 40. So 4, 10, 2, 2, 2, 5. So what's going to pair up and move out? The 2's are going to pair up and move out. And when you do that, you already have a 2 on the outside. So you have right down the top, negative 8 root 5 minus 2 times 2 is 4. And then you have the 2 and the 5 still left over for 10. And on the bottom, we have an 8. So now I've got my inside squared away. They're as small as they can go. And now I look to my 3 outside numbers. So look at all 3. Can I take something out of that? And the answer would be yes, we could take a 4 out of them. So I would have a negative 2, a negative 1 if you wanted to put a 1 in front, and then a 2. So my answer right now is negative 2 root 5 minus, and I'm not going to put the 1 out front, but it's okay if you did, 10 over 2. And that would be your final answer. Okay. All right, let's go to the next problem. Now I want you to do the same thing here. I want you to pause. I want you to try it on your own and then push play once you think you've got an answer. All right, so you should have multiplied by root 3 minus root 6 on top and bottom. Okay, so now when you do that, we're going to start by distributing that 2 through. Okay, so we've got 2 root 3 minus 2 root 6. on the top. And then on the bottom, again, I'm just going to take the first and the last terms and multiply them together because I know the middle will cancel. And so root 3 and root 3 would just be a 3. If you put square root of 9, that's fine, but it'll just turn over to a 3. Minus root 6 times root 6 is root 36, or just minus 6. Okay, so on the bottom, we know that we're going to have a negative 3 when we subtract 3 minus 6. Now let's focus in on my square roots. I've got a 3 and a 6. Neither one of those are going to go anywhere. So as of right now, I've got 2 root 3 minus 2 root 6 over negative 3. So my insides we already talked about look good, and if I look at my outsides, 2, 2, and 3. Can't do anything with that. So this right here is my final answer. All right, that concludes the video over conjugates for today.